When I was growing up, my dad and I loved to watch World War II movies and John Wayne westerns. We would sit on the couch and watch as these movies portrayed the men and women of the war, as well as life in the West. They showed the stoic Indian braves, who took pride in their culture and defending their land. However, this exposure meant that I was taught that the native peoples of the Americas were simply a noble and brave people who continuously fought against the unjust land seizures of the United States and other governments, but were ultimately resigned to fade into history. So, how did this limited presentation render my knowledge of the American Indian into an almost 2D picture, similar to the images I was used to seeing on television? On a basic level, it essentially removed all substance of Native culture other than war. The home life of the Native American was almost not existent in the films I watched because, more likely than not, the producers thought the audience would find it boring. Even now, Indian tribes become synonymous with war, with many aircraft in the United States military being named after them. In my mind, I wanted to be just like them. I wanted to fight alongside the Indians on the 18th century plains of the United States, learning to live off the land and stay on the move. I wanted to be one of the many brave men who fought the Axis in World War II, many of whom were Native American. Maybe the producers of the film didn't want to bother anyone with the mundane workings of everyday life and needed to cut down on movie time. Unfortunately, along with those minutes, they also cut what people could have learned by watching a few more minutes of the film. My views on Native American people, then, were tailored by the images that were available to me, and of those images, the ones I chose to view. What I didn't take into account was that many of the images I chose to view were edited to what the producers thought I wanted to see. As a young boy, I would more likely be interested in battles and tribal conflicts than the going-ons of everyday Ojibwe camp. And they were right. As a young child, I wanted to play cowboys and Indians or cops and robbers more than I wanted to simulate the typical peacetime life of a Native American. Just like I really didn't want to pretend to be a farmer. There was no action. In short, my views and opinions of Indians were shaped by the movies and media I was exposed to. They showed the brave and noble Indian that, while heroic, was fading into the background of civilization, present only on the reservations or running of casinos. While I took every opportunity to visit the Native American section of my local museum, my knowledge of who and what a Native American is remained painfully limited by the movies and media I had exposed to. Long story short, my ideal of a noble warrior as the sole image of a Native American limited my views of them not by adding material that I thought was appropriate, but rather by removing entire sections of their culture due to my limited experience to the truth of what a Native American is.